The Woking Wonders started off the season well with 2 wins in 3 for Prost, but engine issues have meant the team slipped back after Monaco. It turns out the problem was an imbalanced crankshaft, which seems like a pretty basic mistake to make for an experienced team of engineers. Alain's making the best of it though, even if he looks unlikely to win a 3rd title this year. But then he looked pretty unlikely to win it last year, right up until he did, so you never know. Stefan Johansson has been providing an able backup to Prost, and has scored almost as many points so far as Rosberg did all last year, but his ill luck does seem to have followed him over from Maranello. Ken Tyrrell's probably enjoying his season so far, with the exception of that awful shunt in Belgium, and the team are certainly dominating the 3.5 litre category, and not just because they're the only team running 2 cars. The duels between Streff and Palmer, although usually happening off-screen, have been entertaining, if a little perilous for the team's chance of finishing. 5th in the overall standings is a little flattering though. Williams, McLaren, Lotus and to a lesser extent Ferrari have very much hogged all the points so far, and there's a big gap behind them. Williams continued to have the best car out there, and mostly reliable, but the fractious relationship between Mansell and Piquet still threatens to destabilise the team, and has already soured the relationship with Honda. There are rumblings that if the relationship isn't addressed soon, Honda might be on their way somewhere else. Nonetheless, the team head into the second half of the season in confident mood off the back of 3 wins, with Piquet finally having broken his 1987 duck and looking happier than he has been all season. Things look worse than ever for the historic Brabham team, who are reduced to considering it a good weekend if one of their drivers qualifies in the top 10 and maybe even finishes. Finances have been an obvious problem with the lack of sponsorship on the car, and Bernie Eccleston's distraction with other duties and the departure of key personnel like Gordon Murray leave you wondering what the future for Brabham is. In the cockpit, neither driver has had much opportunity to show their quality, though De Cesaris' 3rd place in Belgium was a welcome surprise. In fact, the two seem fairly evenly matched so far, and Andreas had the best of Ricciardo in the recent qualifying sessions. Well, they do at least have some points at last, but it's been another pretty trying year for the Zakspeed team so far. Coming into F1 specifically to develop their in-house turbo engine, the incoming turbo ban will be looming large for them, and with breakdown after breakdown they may be wondering why they bother. Martin Brundle will likewise be casting envious eyes at his former team, Tyrrell, and wondering if he made the right call. Hopefully his experience can help him and the team improve. A mixed bag so far for the boys from Norfolk. Taking back-to-back wins in Detroit and Monaco proved the usefulness of the active suspension system, but Senna's finished a lap down on the leaders in the last 3 races. The active system takes some 5% of the engine's available power output to run, and the extra equipment adds weight to boot. It's clearly been a hindrance at the power circuits in France, Britain and Germany, and Lotus will be hoping that new aerodynamics and some more twisty and lumpy circuits in the second half of the season will improve their fortunes. Senna's still second in the championship and is probably flattering the car, while Nakajima seems to be finding F1 tough going, though he does seem to be happy just to be here and is providing useful testing data for the Honda engineers. Right up until they were struck by the curse of being talked up by Murray Walker, the AGS team had finished every race so far. Sure, they'd started last and finished last just about every time, but at the back of the grid, reliability and consistency can do a lot. It's been enough to make them second only to Tyrrell in the 3.5 litre category, over their direct competitors March and Larrousse, and you can see them joining those two on the big boys scoreboard with a bit more luck. The eye-catching Miami Blue March did exceptionally well to take a point at Monaco with the talented Ivan Capelli at the wheel, but that was the only race he's finished so far. Notably, they seem to have had more engine failures than the other 3.5 litre cars, and given they're all using the same engine, it seems to be a problem within the team, and if so, it'll be one they'll be hoping to sort out with an eye to a return to the points in the future. The 2 talented drivers and a decent chassis are hampered by the same temperamental BMW engine they've been using for years. Swiss engine guru Heini Marder continues working hard to make it faster and more reliable, but turbo, flameouts and other engine-related DNFs are still far too common, plus the incidents natural to tangling it in midfield. Still, they're looking solid and decent, and might have scored more often with a bit more luck. The promise of Gerhard Berger's maiden win for the team at the end of 1986 has seemed to largely evaporate so far this year, with neither driver going better than 5th. They've had a few bits of bad luck, but as with so many teams, the weak link seems to be the engine. The Ford engineers are apparently able to make it go fast or be reliable, but not both, and not necessarily either. Thierry Boutsen is used to this from his years at Arrows, but Fabi's beginning to look a bit downcast. The poor little Osella team do keep trying and without much to show for it. Alex Caffey's run well in several races but has yet to finish one, and is more usually found mixing it with the 3.5 litre cars at the back, though without the consolation prize of the non-turbo trophies to aim at. Just finishing a race or two in the last 8 will represent progress. Like their compatriots Osella, yet to see a checkered flag, and that's with 2 cars. Nannini's been qualifying pretty well, usually halfway up the grid ahead of the Ligiers and Zakspeeds among others, but the engine is once again the weakest link, while Adrian Campos has yet to convince in the second car. A promising 1986 has completely fallen apart this year, and you have to wonder whether Arnoux will keep his seat after costing the team their Alfa engines at the start of the year and leaving them scrambling for replacements. That said, given Alfa Romeo's engine building record, it might not have been much better with them, but we'll never find out. Neither driver has looked much like scoring, with the notable exception of Ghinzani's run in Germany, but at the risk of getting repetitive, the engine is the main problem. It's the same temperamental BMW that's in the Arrows, but in this case mounted in a chassis made for something else entirely. A rather distant 4th in the Constructors' Championship, and just for once it's not entirely down to the engine, though the new motor isn't brilliant either. The main fault here lies with Gustav Brunner's underlying chassis design, which John Barnard is trying hard but unsuccessfully so far to fix. Alboretto's had a couple of thirds as the highlight of the season so far, but now it's been 2 years without a win for the Scuderia, and the higher-ups at Maranello won't be able to let this go on much longer without some major changes. The team may be new, but Gerard Larrousse knows what he's about, and the Lola chassis looks neat. Philippe Alliot, perhaps more comfortable in a French team, has looked much more confident in the cockpit than he ever did in the awful Ram, and the team have crowned half a season of solid, unspectacular progress with their first point in Germany.